How reading can make you rich is a question that invites a deeper exploration beyond the surface-level belief that books simply contain useful information. Because the real wealth-building power of reading lies in its ability to rewire thinking, expand perception, refine decision-making, and expose the reader to mental models and strategies that compound over time into financial advantage. Reading is not merely an educational tool. It is a form of leverage, an asymmetrical activity where a few hours spent absorbing the distilled wisdom of a billionaire, a strategist, a historian, or a behavioral psychologist can dramatically accelerate one's understanding of money, risk, value, and opportunity. In a world where most people rely on instinct, habit, or inherited financial beliefs, reading functions as a quiet revolution. It shifts the internal narrative, sharpens cognitive tools, challenges assumptions, and equips the reader with perspectives that the average person never acquires. The difference between someone who reads strategically and someone who does not is not simply knowledge, it is trajectory. Each book nudges the reader toward better choices, stronger habits, clearer thinking, and more intentional wealth-building behaviors. It is through this cumulative effect that reading makes a person rich. Not in a sudden burst, but in a steady, compounding progression that mirrors the very investment principles found in the books themselves. One of the most practical ways reading builds wealth is by teaching how to think, not just what to do. Personal finance books reveal frameworks like the importance of paying yourself first, automating savings, eliminating high-interest debt, and understanding opportunity cost. Investing books teach principles like compounding, diversification, emotional discipline, margin of safety, and the power of time in the market. Behavioral psychology texts expose cognitive biases, loss aversion, confirmation bias, overconfidence that often sabotage financial decisions. Entrepreneurship and business literature demonstrates how value is created, how systems scale, how teams operate, and how innovation emerges. Each category expands a different layer of intelligence: financial, strategic, operational, psychological. Alone, each book adds a small upgrade. Together, they transform the reader into a multi-dimensional thinker capable of navigating increasingly complex economic realities. Reading also makes you rich by increasing pattern recognition, a skill millionaires consistently credit for their success. When you read widely across history, science, finance, technology, biographies, you begin to see recurring themes. Markets move in cycles. Greed and fear shape human behavior. Innovation rewards early adopters. Empires rise through leverage and fall through complacency. These patterns repeat across centuries. The reader who recognizes them can anticipate shifts, avoid common mistakes, and position themselves ahead of trends instead of reacting to them. This is how Warren Buffett reads. He consumes thousands of pages not to memorize facts but to train his mind to recognize signals that others overlook. Another practical mechanism through which reading builds wealth is by transforming identity. People act according to who they believe they are. A person who sees themselves as not good with money will sabotage their own progress. But someone who begins consuming books by investors, entrepreneurs, and wealth builders gradually absorbs their mindset, values, vocabulary, and worldview. Over time, the reader begins identifying as someone who understands money, who invests, who builds, who strategizes. Identity precedes behavior. When reading shifts identity, habits follow. Saving becomes natural, investing becomes mandatory, learning becomes ongoing, opportunities become visible. This identity shift is one of the most life-changing outcomes of reading, because without it, no strategy is sustainable. Reading also dramatically increases earning potential by expanding skill sets. Skills are monetizable assets, and books are one of the cheapest, fastest ways to acquire new ones. Negotiation, marketing, leadership, communication, finance, technology, creativity, real estate analysis, business modeling, and more. A single skill, copywriting, coding, sales, financial analysis, can increase a person's income by thousands or tens of thousands per year. Reading provides the foundation to learn these skills without formal education or high cost. And because skills compound one skill enabling another, they form a staircase to higher earning levels. But one of the most underrated ways that reading makes you rich is by building mental resilience, the psychological strength required to endure setbacks, market downturns, business failures, and personal challenges. Biographies of entrepreneurs reveal the struggles behind their success: bankruptcy scares, rejections, failures, emotional lows, teaching readers that setbacks are not signs of inadequacy, but stepping stones to mastery. Personal development books teach grit, discipline, focus, and long-term thinking. Stoic philosophy teaches emotional regulation. Together, they form a psychological toolkit that protects the reader from the emotional chaos that causes most people to abandon their financial plans at the first sign of difficulty. Reading also exposes the reader to asymmetric opportunities, ideas that cost little to learn but have unlimited upside. One book might introduce real estate strategies that generate passive income. Another might teach index fund investing that builds long-term wealth with minimal time. Another might reveal business models that can be started with little capital. Another might shift beliefs around negotiation, enabling higher salaries or better deals. Another might introduce the concept of scalability, which opens the door to entrepreneurship. These insights are often unavailable in one's immediate environment. Reading becomes a doorway to possibility. Books also provide low-cost mentorship, giving access to the minds of extraordinary investors, thinkers, and creators. Where else can you sit in the mental space of Warren Buffett, Charlie Munger, Ray Dalio, Naval Ravikant, Benjamin Graham, or Steve Jobs for a few dollars? Mentorship in real life is scarce. In books, it is abundant. Millionaires often attribute their success to mentors they never met in person, mentors found in pages that shaped their decisions. Reading also expands cognitive flexibility, the ability to change perspectives, challenge beliefs, and integrate new information without resistance. Wealth requires adaptability. The economy shifts, technologies evolve, industries transform, and strategies that once worked become obsolete. Readers adapt faster because their minds are used to absorbing new ideas, testing assumptions, and adjusting course. Another practical wealth-building effect of reading is its ability to reduce ignorance risk. Ignorance is expensive. Not understanding taxes, fees, compounding, debt structures, or contract terms can lead to massive losses. Not understanding scams, emotional manipulation, or financial traps can destroy savings. Reading arms the individual with awareness, shielding them against decisions that erode wealth. Even more importantly, reading reshapes long-term vision. Wealth requires patience, strategic planning, and a deep awareness of delayed gratification. Books teach long-term orientation, the idea that the greatest results appear years after the initial effort. Readers internalize the timeline of mastery. They understand that compounding requires time, and time requires discipline. Ultimately, reading makes you rich because it does what no tactic, course, or mentor can do for you. It changes the way your mind works, upgrades your internal operating system, and equips you with the architecture to build, protect, and expand wealth across decades. Wealth begins in books long before it appears in bank accounts. And as the reader continues absorbing wisdom, they gradually discover that the true richness gained from reading is not merely financial, but the expansion of Ngui Ke Chuyen Tai Chin Danoi. Your capacity to think, decide, and act with a level of intention that fundamentally alters the trajectory of your financial life, guiding you from passive participant in the economy to active architect of your own wealth. In this second phase of the exploration, the narrative shifts from how reading makes you rich to how you must read in order for that transformation to actually take place, because reading itself is not enough. Millions of people read casually, yet only a fraction experience meaningful financial change. The difference lies in approach, absorption, application, and integration. Becoming rich through reading is not a matter of consuming more books, but of consuming them strategically, the way an investor reads markets, the way an entrepreneur reads opportunities, the way a strategist reads patterns. A book does not make you wealthy. The version of you that emerges from deep, deliberate reading does. The first practical shift is to adopt the discipline of active reading, a process in which you do not merely absorb information, but interrogate it. Passive reading feels inspiring, but fades quickly. Active reading reshapes thought. The wealthy do not highlight passages for decoration. They extract frameworks, rewrite principles in their own words, question assumptions, and map concepts onto their own goals. They treat a book as a toolkit, not entertainment. Active reading forces the mind to wrestle with ideas until they form new neural pathways. It is through this struggle that insight becomes intuition, and intuition becomes strategy. The next essential practice is reading for problems, not pleasure. Wealth builders identify the financial challenges they currently face: poor savings habits, inconsistent investing, career stagnation, low negotiation skills, unclear goals, and then select books that directly target those obstacles. Reading becomes a diagnostic tool. Each book solves a specific problem. When books are chosen deliberately, each one pushes a financial bottleneck out of the way, clearing a path for the next stage of growth. This transforms reading from a hobby into a compounding engine of problem solving. Another practical step is building a reading stack, a sequence of books arranged to amplify each other's lessons. For example, starting with mindset like Rich Dad Poor Dad or The Psychology of Money creates fertile ground for system-building books, Your Money or Your Life, I Will Teach You to Be Rich, which in turn prepare you for investment strategy, The Intelligent Investor, One Up on Wall Street, Entrepreneurship, The Lean Startup, 0 to 1, and Advanced Thinking, Anti-Fragile. The order matters. When books are read in the right sequence, each one strengthens the impact of the next, similar to how foundational muscle work prepares an athlete for performance training. Without sequence, knowledge becomes scattered. With sequence, it becomes structural. A crucial part of reading for wealth is translation into micro-actions. After each chapter or book, the reader should extract 2 to 5 actions they can apply immediately. A new habit, a new investment rule, a new saving system, a new negotiation tactic, a new mindset shift, a new skill practice. Wealth is built through accumulated micro-actions, not grand gestures. Books provide the blueprint, but execution builds the architecture. When every book produces tangible behavior changes, the financial trajectory bends upward predictably. The next practice is compound rereading, a habit nearly all ultra-successful individuals share. Millionaires often reread foundational books dozens of times because new levels of consciousness unlock new interpretations. A book you read at age 20 teaches survival. The same book at age 30 teaches leverage. At 40, it teaches legacy. Rereading allows principles to sink beneath awareness and become instinctive. Instinct is the ultimate financial advantage because instinct guides decisions automatically in moments when logic feels overwhelmed. Another dimension of practical reading is cross-category integration, combining insights from finance, psychology, biology, history, strategy, negotiation, and technology to form a multidimensional understanding of wealth. A person who reads only finance books becomes technically competent, but strategically limited. A person who reads broadly becomes cognitively flexible, capable of identifying opportunities in unexpected places. Cross-disciplinary knowledge is where breakthrough ideas emerge. It is no accident that Warren Buffett reads business news, biographies, annual reports, and psychology, or that Elon Musk reads physics, engineering, and sci-fi, or that Charlie Munger swears by multidisciplinary learning. Wealth rewards those who connect dots others do not see. Practical reading also requires filters, the ability to discern which insights apply to your unique situation and which do not. Not every strategy fits every life stage. Young investors benefit from aggressive compounding. Older investors need stability. Entrepreneurs need risk tolerance. Employees need career leverage. Some books promote real estate. Others promote index funds. Others promote business ownership. The wealthy learn to extract principles, rather than blindly imitate tactics. They ask, what problem was this author solving? Does that match my context? Filtering prevents the chaos of trying to apply every idea simultaneously. Another powerful technique is reading ahead of your life, preparing for the next stage before you arrive there. If you aspire to invest, read investing books now. If you aspire to start a business, Read entrepreneurship books before launching. If you aspire to manage wealth, read tax and estate planning books early. By the time opportunity appears, you will already possess the mental tools to recognize and seize it. Timing becomes easier because preparation creates intuition. Reading for wealth also requires journaling, turning insights into personal philosophy. When you write about what you read, summaries, reflections, connections, questions, you solidify understanding and create a personalized financial manual. Journaling transforms reading from consumption to creation. It is the first step toward original thought, and original thought is where wealth accelerates. Finally, the most practical secret of reading your way to wealth is recognizing that wealth is a literacy, not an event. Just as reading expands vocabulary, it expands financial vocabulary: risk, compounding, leverage, optionality, cash flow, margin of safety, diversification, asymmetric return. The richer your financial vocabulary, the richer your decisions. Wealth begins in language. When you understand the words, you understand the world. When you understand the world, you can shape your future instead of reacting to it. And ultimately, the greatest practical insight of all is that reading makes you rich, not through information, but through transformation. Books do not change outcomes until they change identity. When reading turns you into someone who thinks long-term, acts with discipline, sees opportunity clearly, and understands money deeply, wealth becomes not a distant dream, but an inevitable result of the person you have become. Completed.